The silence in space was complete. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Redemption, watching the broken pieces of enemy ships drift slowly past his window. The war was over. After 15 long years of fighting, humanity had won against the Zephyrian Empire. But Jake did not feel like celebrating. The final battle had been brutal. Thousands of ships from both sides had fought above the Zephyrian homeworld. The space around the planet was now filled with twisted metal and floating debris. Some pieces still glowed red-hot from the explosions. Jake counted at least 50 Federation ships that would never return home. "Sir, the casualty reports are—" "Coming in," said Lieutenant Kate Adams as she walked up behind him. Her uniform was torn and dirty from the long battle. Dark circles under her eyes showed how tired she was. Everyone on the bridge looked the same way. Jake turned to face her. "How bad is it?" Kate looked down at her datapad. "We lost 12,000 people in the final assault. The Zephyrians lost more, but ... She paused and shook her head. "2. Many good people died today," Jake nodded slowly. He had been a soldier for 30 years, but he never got used to losing people under his command. Each name on that list was someone's son or daughter, someone's parent or friend. The cost of victory was always higher than anyone wanted to pay. "What about the Zephyrian surrender?" Jake asked. "Complete and unconditional," Kate replied. "Their emperor is dead, their fleet is destroyed. The few ships that survived have given up. It's over, sir." Jake should have felt relief. The war that had started when he was just a young captain was finally finished. Humanity was safe. The Federation could start rebuilding. But something felt wrong. Throughout the war, the Zephyrians had always seemed to know where Federation fleets would attack. They had been ready for too many surprise attacks. "Kate, I want you to pull all the battle reports from the last 2 years," Jake said. "Something doesn't add up." Before Kate could respond, the bridge doors opened. Commander Luke Carter walked in, his face grim. Luke was the Federation's best investigator, a man who could find secrets that others missed. Jake had known him for 10 years and had never seen him look so worried. "Admiral, we need to talk." "In private," Luke said. Jake led Luke to his ready room behind the bridge. The small office was simple, with just a desk, 2 chairs, and a window looking out into space. Jake poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot that had been brewing too long. Both men sat down. "What's wrong, Luke?" Jake asked. Luke pulled out a secured datapad and activated it. 3 days ago, my team started going through captured Zephyrian files. We found something that changes everything. The datapad showed a list of Federation battle plans, ship movements, and classified information. Jake recognized many of the documents. They were some of the most secret files in the Federation military. "How did they get these?" Jake asked. "Someone gave them to the Zephyrians," Luke said. "Someone high up in the Federation command structure?" "Someone with access to everything." Jake felt his stomach drop. "You're saying we have a traitor?" "Not just one traitor, Jake. 3 of them." Luke touched the datapad and 3 names appeared on the screen. General Frank Miller, Admiral Susan Blake, and Director Carl Thompson. Jake stared at the names. He knew all 3 people. Frank Miller had been his friend for 20 years. They had served together on the frontier worlds before the war started. Susan Blake was one of the Federation's most decorated officers. Carl Thompson ran the intelligence division that was supposed to catch spies. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. Luke nodded. "The evidence is solid. All 3 have been feeding information to the Zephyrians for at least 5 years. Maybe longer. They're the reason so many of our attacks failed? They're the reason so many good people died." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, rescue ships were searching through the debris field for survivors. Each piece of wreckage represented lives lost because of the 3 traitors. The anger built up inside him like a growing fire. "Where are they now?" Jake asked. "Gone," Luke said. "All 3 disappeared from their posts 2 days ago, right after the Zephyrian surrender. They knew we would find out eventually." Jake turned back to Luke. "What did they take with them?" "That's the worst part. They didn't just run. They stole." classified technology, ship designs, and weapons blueprints. Frank Miller took experimental jump drive plans that could revolutionize space travel. Susan Blake stole the codes for our defense systems. Carl Thompson took intelligence files on every Federation world. Jake sat back down heavily. Why would they do this? What could the Zephyrians offer them? Luke touched the datapad again. New information appeared. We're still investigating, but it looks like they were promised positions in a new government after the Zephyrians won. They thought humanity would lose the war. But we didn't lose, Jake said, double quote. No, we didn't. And now they're desperate. Our sources say they've made contact with Zephyrian military units that refuse to surrender. They're building a new alliance, Jake. The war might be over, but these three are just getting started. Jake stood up again, this time with purpose. We have to stop them. The Federation Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss what to do, Luke said. They'll probably want to send a small team to track them down quietly. No, Jake said firmly. This is too important for a small team. These three betrayed everything we fought for. They're the reason thousands of our people died. They have our most advanced technology and they're working with enemy forces. He paused and looked directly at Luke. I want a full task force. I want the best ships and the best people, and I want to lead it personally. Luke nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. We'll need someone with your experience and reputation to catch them. Jake walked back to the window. The rescue operations were still going on, but already he could see Federation ships preparing to leave the system. Most would head home to celebrate victory and mourn the dead. But Jake would not be going home, not yet. Put together a briefing for the council, Jake said. Tell them this is about more than just catching 3 traitors. If these people succeed in building a new enemy force, everything we sacrificed for will be meaningless. The war will start all over again. Luke stood up to leave. What are you? Going to call the mission? Jake thought for a moment. Operation Judgment. It's time for these traitors to face justice for what they've done. After Luke left, Jake remained alone in his ready room. Through the window he could see the planet. Below, the Zephyrian homeworld was dark now, its cities destroyed or abandoned. The war had been won, but the cost had been terrible. And now, because of 3 people's greed and betrayal, that cost might have been for nothing. Jake picked up his communicator and called the bridge. Kate, I want you to prepare the crew for an extended mission. We're not going home yet. Sir? Kate's voice sounded surprised. The war was just the beginning, Kate. Now we have to pursue the traitors across the galaxy. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 people who had sworn to protect humanity were planning to destroy it. But Jake Morrison had spent his entire life defending the Federation, and he was not going to stop now. The hunt was about to begin. 6 months had passed since Admiral Jake Morrison began hunting the 3 traitors across the galaxy. His task force of 12 ships had followed them to 14 different star systems, but they were always one step behind. Every time they arrived at a planet or space station, the traitors had already left. Jake stood in the war room of the UES Redemption, staring at a large star map. Red dots marked every place they had searched. Blue lines showed the paths the traitors had taken. The pattern made no sense. The 3 fugitives seemed to jump randomly from system to system with no clear destination. Still nothing from the Kepler system, reported Lieutenant Kate Adams. She looked tired. Everyone on the ship looked tired. The long chase was wearing down the crew. And the mining station there was attacked 3 days ago, but by the time we got there, the attackers were gone. Commander Luke Carter walked into the room carrying a datapad. His investigation team had been working around the clock, trying to predict where the traitors would strike next. I have some bad news, he said, and some worse news. Jake turned away from the star map. Give me the bad news first. The traitors aren't just running randomly, Luke said. They're building something. Every place they've attacked has been a research facility, a weapons depot, or a technology center. They're collecting specific items? What kind of items? Jake asked. Luke activated his datapad and showed them a list. Advanced computers, quantum processors, alien artifacts, and something called resonance crystals. Our science team thinks they're trying to build some kind of communication device. Kate frowned. What's the worst news? They're not working alone anymore, Luke said. Intelligence reports say they have at least 50 ships now. Former Zephyrian military units and Federation deserters who joined their cause. They're calling themselves the Liberation Front. Jake felt anger building in his chest. Liberation from what? From the Federation government, Luke replied. They're saying the war could have ended years ago if the Federation had been willing to negotiate. They claim thousands of people died because of Federation pride and stubbornness. Jake slammed his fist on the table. Those three caused those deaths by giving information to the enemy. Now they're trying to rewrite history. Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication system activated. Admiral Morrison to the bridge immediately, came the voice of Captain Amy Rogers. Jake hurried to the bridge with Kate and Luke following behind him. Amy was standing at the main console, her face pale. Sir, we just received a priority message from Federation Command. The Traitors attacked the research station at Kepler 442b yesterday. Jake knew that station. It was where the Federation studied alien technology recovered from dead civilizations. What did they take? Everything, Amy said. The entire research facility was stripped clean. But that's not the worst part. They killed everyone at the station, 200 researchers and security personnel. The bridge fell silent. During their previous attacks, the Traitors had always tried to avoid killing people. They would disable ships and steal what they wanted, but they rarely killed unless they had to. This was different. There's more, Amy continued. Dr. Ellen White was supposed to be at that station. She was leading a project to study artifacts from the architect civilization. Jake knew Dr. White. She was the Federation's best xenorchaeologist. Someone who understood alien technology better than anyone else? Was she killed? No, sir, Amy said. She wasn't there during the attack, but her research was stolen, all of it. Luke stepped forward. What was she working on? Amy looked uncomfortable. According to the report, she was studying artifacts that might be connected to faster-than-light communication, the kind that could work across the entire galaxy instantly. Jake understood the implications immediately. If they build that technology, we'll never be able to track them. They could coordinate attacks from anywhere in the galaxy. There's something else, Amy said. Dr. White has requested to join our mission. She says she's the only one who understands the artifacts well enough to stop the Traitors from using them. Jake nodded, approved. Have her meet us at the Cygnus station. We'll pick her up there. 2 days later, Dr. Ellen White came aboard the UES Redemption. She was a small woman with gray hair and intelligent eyes. She carried a case containing the few artifacts that had not been stolen from her research station. Admiral Morrison, she said as she was escorted to the war room, thank you for allowing me to join your mission. Jake shook her hand. Doctor, we need to understand what the Traitors are trying to build. Ellen opened her case and pulled out a small crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. This is a communication resonator created by the architect civilization. They disappeared millions of years ago, but their technology was incredibly advanced. She placed the crystal on the table. The artifacts they stole from my station are pieces of a larger device. If assembled correctly, it could create a communication network that spans the entire galaxy. Messages could be sent instantly to any location. Kate leaned forward. How is that possible? The architects understood something about space and time that we don't, Ellen explained. They found a way to fold space itself, creating shortcuts for information to travel. It's like having a telephone that works across any distance immediately. Luke studied the crystal. If the Traitors build this device, they could coordinate attacks across the galaxy. They could have ships in 100 different systems all acting at the same time. That's not the worst part, Ellen said. The communication network would also give them access to other architect technology. There are ruins and artifacts scattered across the galaxy that no one has been able to activate. But with this device, they could wake up systems that have been sleeping for millions of years. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of systems? We don't know, Ellen admitted. But the architects were incredibly powerful. They built structures that are bigger than planets. They created weapons that could destroy entire star systems. If the Traitors gain access to that technology. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the danger. How long do we have? Jake asked. Ellen looked at her notes. Based on what they stole, I estimate they need maybe 2 more components. There's a research facility on Titan Base that has quantum processors powerful enough to run the device. And, there's a mining operation on asteroid XK739 that produces the rare metals needed for the resonance amplifiers. Luke was already checking the star map. Titan Base is 12 light-years away. The asteroid mining operation is 15 light-years in the opposite direction. We need to split our forces, Jake decided. Luke, take half the fleet to Titan Base. I'll take the other half to the asteroid facility. We'll catch them at one location or the other. Sir, Amy said, what if they don't attack either location? What if they already have everything they need? Jake looked at the star map again. The red dots marking their previous searches seemed to form a pattern now. The Traitors were moving toward the edge of known space, toward the frontier worlds, where the Federation had little presence. Then we're running out of time, Jake said. Ellen, how long would it take them to build this device once they have all the components? Ellen thought for a moment. If they have the right people and equipment, maybe a week. No more than 2 weeks, Jake turned to the bridge crew. All ships prepare for jump. We're going to end this chase one way or another. As the UES Redemption prepared to jump to hyperspace, Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 Traitors were trying to build a weapon that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. They had already killed hundreds of people and stolen the most dangerous technology humanity had ever discovered. But Jake Morrison had spent his entire life protecting the Federation, and he was not going to let 3 traitors destroy everything he had fought for. The hunt was about to reach its climax, and this time he would not arrive too late. The chase had led them to the edge of known space, where stars were scattered thin and planets were cold and empty. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Redemption, watching the massive alien structure grow larger on the viewing screen. The Andromeda Gateway hung in space like a giant ring made of crystal and metal, 30 kilometers across and glowing with strange blue light. "I've never seen anything like it," whispered Lieutenant Kate Adams. She was standing next to Jake, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. The gateway was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Dr. Ellen White was busy at her console, scanning the structure with every sensor they had. "The energy readings are off the charts," she said. "This thing is older than human civilization. Maybe older than life on Earth." Commander Luke Carter had arrived 3 hours earlier with his half of the fleet. The reunion had been brief because long-range sensors had detected enemy ships near the gateway. The Traitors had beaten them here, but not by much. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked. 47 vessels, reported Captain Amy Rogers from the tactical station. "Mix of stolen Federation ships and Zephyrian cruisers. They're arranged in a defensive formation around the gateway." Jake studied the enemy fleet through his binoculars. He could see the ships clearly now. Some he recognized as Federation vessels that had been reported missing over the past few months. Others were Zephyrian warships that should have been destroyed after the war ended. "Sir," said Commander Ryan Bell, the ship's chief science officer, "I'm detecting massive energy buildup inside the gateway. Whatever they're doing, they're almost finished." Dr. White looked up from her console. "The artifacts they stole are the key to activating the gateway. But this isn't just a communication device. This is a portal." Jake turned to her. "A portal to where?" "The Andromeda Galaxy," Ellen said. "The ancient race that built this called themselves the Architects. They created this gateway as a bridge between our galaxy and theirs." Luke frowned. "Why would they build something like that?" Ellen's face was pale. I don't think they built it to go to Andromeda. I think they built it to keep something in Andromeda from coming here. Before Jake could ask what she meant, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice filled the bridge. Admiral Morrison, this is General Frank Miller. I know you're out there. Jake grabbed the microphone. Frank, this ends? Now, surrender and face justice for what you've done. Frank's laugh was bitter. Justice? Jake, you still don't understand. The Federation is corrupt. The war with the Zephyrians could have ended years ago if the government had been willing to negotiate. Instead, they let millions of people die for their pride. So you decided to help the enemy, Jake said. You gave them our secrets and got our people killed. I tried to end the war quickly, Frank replied. But the Federation wouldn't listen. Now I'm going to do something that will change everything. The Andromeda Galaxy is full of resources and technology that humanity needs. We're going to open the gateway and claim what's waiting on the other side. Jake looked at Ellen. She was shaking her head frantically. Don't let him do it, she whispered. The architects sealed that gateway for a reason. Frank, you don't know what you're dealing with, Jake said into the microphone. The aliens who built that gateway were trying to keep something locked away. Old myths and legends, Frank replied. The architects disappeared millions of years ago. Whatever they were afraid of is long dead. But their technology is still there, waiting for someone brave enough to claim it. The communication channel went dead. On the viewing screen, Jake could see lights beginning to pulse along the gateway's rim. The ancient structure was coming to life. All ships, attack formation, Jake ordered. We have to stop them before they activate that gateway. The Federation fleet moved forward, but the Traitors were ready. Enemy ships opened fire as soon as they came within range. The space around the gateway erupted in explosions as the two fleets clashed. Captain Steve Martin, commanding the heavy cruiser U.S. Relentless, led the first attack wave. His ship fired everything it had at the enemy formation, but the Traitors had been preparing for this battle. They had positioned their ships to use the gateway's energy field as a shield. They're using the gateway to protect themselves, Amy reported. Our weapons can't penetrate that energy field. Jake watched as 3 of his ships were destroyed in the first few minutes of battle. The enemy had the advantage of position and numbers, but he had something they didn't have, people who were fighting for the right reasons. All fighters launch, Jake ordered. Get through their defenses and target the gateway's control systems. Dozens of small Federation fighters swarmed toward the enemy fleet. They were faster and more maneuverable than the big ships, able to dodge between the energy beams and missile explosions, but the Traitors had fighters too. The space around the gateway became a chaotic battle zone as hundreds of small ships fought each other among the wreckage of larger vessels. Sir, Ellen called out, the gateway is charging faster than expected. Something's wrong with the activation sequence. Jake looked at the alien structure. The blue light was becoming brighter, and he could see energy crackling along its surface. How long do we have? Maybe 10 minutes, Ellen said. But Admiral, there's something else. I'm detecting movement on the other side of the gateway. Something big. Before Jake could respond, the gateway flashed with brilliant light. The energy field around it suddenly expanded, pushing ships from both fleets away from the structure. In the center of the ring, space began to twist and bend. It's opening, Ellen whispered. The portal is opening. Jake watched in horror as the gateway activated. The space inside the ring became dark, like looking into a deep well. Then slowly, shapes began to emerge from the darkness. The first ship that came through was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was sleek and black, with curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. It was followed by another, then another. Within minutes, dozens of alien vessels were pouring through the gateway. Sir, Ryan called out, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships. Their technology is far more advanced than ours. The alien ships moved with perfect coordination, spreading out from the gateway in a complex formation. They ignored the human vessels completely, as if the Federation and Traitor fleets were too primitive to be worth their attention. Then one of the alien ships fired a single beam of energy. The beam struck General Miller's flagship, the stolen Federation battleship UES Victory. The massive warship simply disappeared, vaporized in an instant. "All ships, retreat," Jake ordered. "Pull back to a safe distance." But the alien ships weren't interested in retreat. They began firing on both Federation and Traitor vessels, destroying them with casual efficiency. Jake watched helplessly as years of human shipbuilding were reduced to scrap metal in a matter of minutes. "They're not trying to capture us, Luke." "Sod, they're exterminating us." Ellen was working frantically at her console. "I'm reading the gateway's control systems. There's a failsafe built into the structure. The architects designed it to destroy itself if the portal was ever opened." Jake turned to her. "Can we activate it?" "Yes, but it will take time. And someone will have to get close to the gateway too." "Input the command sequence." Jake looked at the alien ships hunting down the surviving human vessels. The Traitors had opened a door that should have stayed closed forever. Now something ancient and terrible had been released into their galaxy. "Prepare." "A shuttle," Jake ordered. "I'm going to the gateway." Kate grabbed his arm. "Sir, that's suicide. Those alien ships will destroy you before you get close." Jake pulled free. "Someone has to try. If we don't stop this now, these creatures will spread across the galaxy. Everything we fought for will be lost." He looked out at the alien ships and the gateway they had emerged from. The war had been just the beginning. Now humanity faced something far worse than traitors or enemy empires. They faced the darkness that the architects had tried to keep locked away. The alien ships moved through space like deadly shadows, hunting down human vessels with cold efficiency. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Redemption as another Federation cruiser was destroyed by a single beam of energy. The aliens showed no mercy and asked no questions. They simply killed. "Sir, we have to get out of here," Lieutenant Kate Adams said. Her voice was shaking as she watched the slaughter on the viewing screen. "We can't fight these things." Jake kept his eyes on the alien fleet. There were at least 60 ships now, all sleek and black with technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. They moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. "We're not running," Jake said. "Not yet." Dr. Ellen White was still working at her console, trying to understand the aliens that had come through the gateway. "Admiral, I'm getting some readings from their ships. These beings are old." "Very old." "They've been waiting on the other side of the gateway for millions of years." Commander Luke Carter looked up from his tactical station. "Waiting for what?" "For someone to open the gateway," Ellen replied. "I think they've been trapped in the Andromeda Galaxy since the architects sealed the portal. Now they're free and they're angry." Jake turned to her. "Can you communicate with them?" Ellen shook her head. "I've tried every frequency we know. They're either not listening or they don't care what we have to say." Captain Amy Rogers called out from across the bridge. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the surviving traitor ships. It's Admiral Susan Blake." Jake grabbed the microphone. "Susan, what have you done?" Susan's voice was filled with panic. "Jake, we didn't know. Frank said they were just advanced aliens who could help us. We thought they would be grateful that we opened the gateway. Where's Frank now?" Jake asked. "Dead," Susan replied. "His ship was the first one they destroyed. Carl Thompson is dead too." "Jake, these things aren't here to help anyone. They're here to destroy everything." On the viewing screen, Jake could see Susan's damaged ship trying to escape from 3 alien vessels. They were playing with her, letting her think she might escape, before moving in for the kill. "Susan, listen to me," Jake said. "Dr. White says there's a way to close the gateway. We need to get close to it and activate a failsafe system." "I'm not going to make it," Susan said. "My ship is too damaged, but Jake, I want you to know that I'm sorry. We thought we were saving humanity, but we've doomed everyone." The alien ships finally stopped playing. 3 beams of energy struck Susan's ship at the same time, and it exploded in a ball of fire. Admiral Susan Blake, one of the Federation's most decorated officers, was dead. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. 3 old friends had betrayed everything they had sworn to protect. Now 2 of them were dead, and the third had released something terrible into the galaxy. "Sir," said Commander Ryan Bell, "I'm detecting more ships coming through the gateway. Hundreds of them." Jake opened his eyes and looked at the alien structure. The portal was glowing brighter now, and ship after ship was emerging from the darkness. The aliens were bringing their entire fleet through. "How many do you think there are?" Jake asked. Ryan checked his readings. "At this rate, maybe 1,000 ships, maybe more." Ellen looked up from her console. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their technology. These beings are what the architects were trying to stop. They call themselves the Andromedans, and they're conquerors. They destroy civilizations and take their resources." "What happened to the architects?" Luke asked. "The Andromedans destroyed them," Ellen said. "But before they died, the architects built the gateway as a trap. They lured the Andromedans through it, then sealed it behind them. The Andromedans have been trapped in the Andromeda Galaxy ever since." Jake understood now. The architects hadn't built the gateway to explore other galaxies. They had built it as a prison, and now the prison was open. "Can we contact other Federation fleets?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "Long-range communications are being jammed. The Andromedans are making sure we can't warn anyone." Jake looked at his crew. They were all scared, but they were still at their posts. These were good people who had followed him across the galaxy to catch 3 traitors. Now they were facing something far worse than betrayal. "Ellen, how do we activate the failsafe?" Jake asked. Ellen pulled up a diagram on her screen. "There's a control center inside the gateway structure. Someone has to get there and input the activation sequence. But it's not going to be easy. The failsafe will destroy the gateway and everything around it." "How big is the explosion?" Jake asked. "Big enough to destroy every ship within 50 kilometers, Ellen said, "including us." Jake nodded. He had expected that. "How long will it take to activate?" "Maybe 5 minutes once we start the sequence," Ellen replied. "But Admiral, there's something else. The Andromedans know about the failsafe. They're sending ships to guard the gateway's control center." Jake looked at the viewing screen. 3 large Andromedan vessels were moving toward the gateway, positioning themselves to protect it. They knew that humanity might try to close the portal. "Sir," Kate said, "we could try to get a message to the nearest Federation base, warn them about what's coming." Jake thought about it. The nearest Federation base was 40 light-years away. Even if they could get a message through, it would take weeks for help to arrive. By then, the Andromedans would have spread throughout the galaxy. "No," Jake said. "We end this here. All ships prepare for final assault." Luke looked at him. "Jake, we only have 8 ships left. They have hundreds." "Then we'll have to make those 8 ships count," Jake replied. "Target the Andromedan vessels guarding the gateway. We need to clear a path to the control center." The remaining Federation ships moved into attack formation. Jake knew it was hopeless. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But they were fighting for more than just their own lives. They were fighting for every human being in the galaxy. "Sir," Amy said, "I'm detecting movement from the surviving traitor ships. They're joining our formation." Jake looked at the tactical display. 7 traitor vessels were moving to support the Federation fleet. The people who had started this disaster were now willing to die to stop it. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake said over the fleet communication channel. "Today we face an enemy that threatens everything we hold dear. We may not survive this battle, but we will not let these creatures destroy our galaxy for humanity." The combined fleet of Federation and traitor ships charged toward the gateway. The Andromedans opened fire immediately, their energy weapons tearing through human vessels like paper. Jake watched as ship after ship was destroyed, but the survivors kept going. Captain Steve Martin's cruiser, the UES Relentless, broke through the Andromedan line and rammed directly into the gateway's control center. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through both fleets. "Did he do it?" Jake asked. Ellen checked her readings. "No, sir. The control center is damaged but still functional. We need someone to get inside and finish the job." Jake looked at the gateway. It was still glowing, still bringing more Andromedan ships through. Steve Martin had died trying to stop them, but his sacrifice had given them a chance. "Prepare a shuttle," Jake ordered. "I'm going to finish what Steve started." Kate grabbed his arm. "Sir, please, let me go instead." Jake pulled free gently. "No, Kate, this is my responsibility. I brought us here to catch 3 traitors, and now I have to clean up the mess they made." He looked at his crew one last time. They were the best people he had ever served with. "Ellen, send the failsafe sequence to my shuttle. Luke, take command of the fleet. Try to keep the Andromedans busy while I get to the control center." Jake headed for the shuttle bay, knowing he would never see his crew again. Behind him, the battle raged on as humanity made its last stand against the darkness. Admiral Jake Morrison flew his shuttle through the chaos of battle, dodging energy beams and explosions as he headed toward the damaged Gateway Control Center. Behind him, the remaining Federation ships were fighting desperately against hundreds of Andromedan vessels. He knew his people were buying him time with their lives. The Gateway loomed ahead of him, a massive ring of crystal and metal 30 kilometers across. The control center was a small structure attached to the inner edge of the ring, barely visible among the swirling energy patterns. Steve Martin's sacrifice had blasted a hole in its outer hull, but the center was still operational. "Jake, this is Luke," came Commander Carter's voice over the radio. "We're holding them off, but not for long. How much time do you need?" Jake checked the failsafe sequence that Dr. White had uploaded to his shuttle. 5 minutes once I start the activation. Maybe less if I'm lucky." "You'll have it," Luke promised. Jake guided his shuttle through the hole in the control center's hull. Inside, he found a maze of corridors filled with strange alien technology. The walls glowed with the same blue light as the gateway itself. Emergency lighting flickered from the damage Steve's ship had caused. Jake landed his shuttle in what looked like a docking bay and grabbed his equipment pack. The failsafe activation required manual input at 3 different control stations throughout. The center, Dr. White had programmed his portable computer with the correct sequences, but he had to reach each station and enter the codes by hand. The first control station was just down the corridor from where he landed. Jake found it easily, a crystalline panel covered with symbols that meant nothing to him. He connected his computer to the alien interface and watched as Ellen's program began translating the symbols. "First station activated," he reported back to his fleet. "Moving to Station 2. As Jake moved deeper into the control center, he could feel the gateway's power around him. The walls hummed with energy and the floor vibrated under his feet. Through the transparent sections of the corridor, he could see Andromedan ships still pouring through the portal from their home galaxy. The second control station was in the center's main power room. Jake had to climb down 3 levels to reach it, following Ellen's directions on his computer. The power room was huge, filled with massive crystals that pulsed with energy. The control station sat in the middle of it all, surrounded by conduits that carried power to the gateway. Jake connected his computer and started the second sequence. This one took longer, and he could hear explosions getting closer as the battle raged outside. His fleet was running out of time. "Second station activated," he reported. "1 more to go." "Jake, hurry," came Kate's voice over the radio. "Long range. Sensors show more Andromedan ships coming through. Thousands of them." Jake ran through the corridors toward the third and final control station. It was located near the gateway's main focusing array, the system that kept the portal stable. As he climbed toward it, he could see the battle outside through the transparent walls. The U's Redemption was still fighting, but she was badly damaged. Jake could see hull breaches and fires throughout the ship. Luke was keeping his promise, holding the Andromedans back, but at a terrible cost. The third control station was different from the others. It was larger and more complex, with multiple crystalline panels arranged in a circle. Jake realized this was the master control for the entire gateway system. From here, the architects had controlled one of the most powerful devices ever built. Jake connected his computer and began the final sequence. The translation took longer this time, and several error messages appeared on his screen. Something was wrong. Ellen, I'm having trouble with the third station, Jake reported. The sequence isn't working properly. Dr. White's voice came back immediately. The master control has additional safety protocols. You need to input a personal authorization code. What code? Jake asked. It has to be from an architect, Ellen said. Someone with the genetic markers of the race that built the gateway. Jake stared at the control panel. Ellen, the architects have been dead for millions of years. How am I supposed to get their authorization code? There was silence on the radio for a moment. Then Ellen's voice came back, excited. Jake, remember what I told you about human DNA? We have traces of genetic material from dozens of extinct alien races. It's possible that some humans carry architect markers. Jake pressed his hand against the control panel's bioscanner. Nothing happened. He tried different positions, different fingers, but the panel remained inactive. It's not working, Jake said. I don't have the right genetic markers. Outside, he could see his fleet being systematically destroyed. Only 3 Federation ships were still fighting, surrounded by hundreds of Andromedan vessels. The UES Redemption was barely holding together. Then Jake heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see a figure in a damaged spacesuit walking down the corridor. As the person got closer, Jake recognized the face through the helmet visor. It was Admiral Susan Blake. Susan? Jake said in amazement. I thought you were dead. Susan pulled off her helmet. Her face was cut and bruised, and her uniform was torn. My ship was destroyed, but I managed to get to an escape pod. I've been trying to reach the control center ever since. Jake stared at her. Why? You're one of the traitors? You helped cause this. Susan walked up to the control panel. Because I want to fix what I broke. Jake, I know what I did was wrong. Frank convinced me that the Federation was weak, that we needed new leadership. But I was a fool. I betrayed everything I swore to protect. She pressed her hand against the bioscanner. The panel immediately came to life, symbols flowing across its surface. Jake was shocked. You have architect genetic markers? Susan nodded. My grandmother was from the frontier colonies. Her family had been exposed to alien artifacts for generations. I never knew it meant anything until now. She began entering commands into the control panel, her fingers moving quickly across the crystalline surface. Jake, when this failsafe activates, everything within 50 kilometers will be destroyed. That includes my escape pod and your shuttle. Jake nodded. I know, we're not leaving. Susan smiled sadly. I spent my whole career fighting for humanity. Then I threw it all away because I was angry and stupid. At least now I can die doing the right thing. The control panel flashed and a new set of symbols appeared. Susan continued working, sweat beading on her forehead as she raced to complete the sequence. There, she said finally. Failsafe activated. We have 3 minutes before the gateway destroys itself. Jake activated his radio. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Gateway failsafe is active. You have 3 minutes to get clear. Pull back immediately. What about you, sir? Came Kate's voice. Jake looked at Susan, who was still working at the control panel to make sure the sequence would complete properly. We're staying to make sure it works. Tell everyone that Admiral Blake died a hero. She saved the galaxy. Susan looked up at him. Thank you, Jake, for everything. Outside, Jake could see the remaining Federation ships pulling back from the gateway. The Andromedans, sensing something was wrong, began firing frantically at the control center. But it was too late. The gateway began to pulse with brilliant light. Cracks appeared along its crystalline surface as the ancient structure started to tear itself apart. The portal to the Andromeda galaxy flickered and began to collapse. Jake watched as the Andromedan ships near the gateway were caught in the collapsing space-time field. They were pulled back toward the portal, screaming across all frequencies as they realized what was happening. The invasion fleet that had seemed unstoppable was being dragged back to their home galaxy. 1 minute to detonation, Susan said. Jake thought about his crew. The people he had led across the galaxy in pursuit of 3 traitors. Kate Adams, Luke Carter, Amy Rogers, Ellen White, and all the others. They were good people who had followed him into danger because they believed in doing what was right. "Jake," came Luke's voice over the radio, "we're clear of the blast zone. The fleet is safe." Jake smiled. His people would survive. They would return to Federation space and tell the story of what happened here. The galaxy would know that Traitors had nearly doomed everyone, but that good people had stood up and stopped them. 10 seconds, Susan said. Jake looked out at the stars one last time. The war with the Zephyrians had been just the beginning. The pursuit of the Traitors had led to something far more dangerous. But in the end, humanity had proven that they could face any threat and survive. The gateway exploded in a flash of light. That could be seen from dozens of star systems. When the light faded, there was nothing left but empty space and the scattered remains of the Andromedan fleet. Admiral Jake Morrison and Admiral Susan Blake were gone, but their sacrifice had saved the galaxy. The portal to Andromeda was sealed forever, and the ancient threat had been stopped. The war was finally over.